Fed up of wardrobes, driven to distraction and drowning with doom boxes? Tired of living in chaos? Welcome to Decluttering Untangled, how to declutter when you're overwhelmed, ADHD or autistic. I'm going to help you uncover the secrets to decluttering, no matter what hurdles you face. You'll discover how to declutter, de-stress and transform your world. I'm Heather Tingle, reformed hoarder, neurodivergent declutter queen, and your guide through the maze of mess. Let's get untangled. Hello Untanglers, and welcome to another episode of Decluttering Untangled with me, your host, Heather Tingle. In today's episode, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than normal because this is due to overwhelming feedback from you all that you wanted to hear my story. So I'm going to try and tell it, and I'm going to try and do it as briefly as I can, but brief isn't really what I do. But I am going to be bearing all, and I have very little direction over where my brain takes me. So I think it's important to give trigger warnings over mental health issues that will be raised in this episode. Now, I think it's important to understand how I grew up and also the house I moved into, as well as how I decluttered and how life is now, because all aspects of our lives lead us to live in clutter, and also it impacts on the way we live post declutter too. So growing up, I was very, very sentimental. I didn't know how to tidy up or have the tools to decide how to let go of anything. When my mum would tell me to tidy up, I would go in my room, read a book and shove things either under the bed or in any drawer that I could fit them in, really. Chucking things into wardrobes, wherever they would fit, that was tidying. As long as the floor was clear, in my head, that was tidying up. So never really brought up with the tools on how to do something like that. And also I was brought up with the everything should be saved mindset, as money didn't grow on trees. You know, we're not rich, we can't buy everything you want, so you'll have to be grateful for what you've got. Things will come in handy and just be grateful what you have got. And I think looking back, I wasn't in charge of what stayed or went. I definitely never decided to let something go. So it must have been, my mum must have been the one to let things go on my behalf. You know, trying to be a good mum. However, I do remember being overly sentimental about everything. And if I'm totally honest, I still really am to this day. I'm just better at asking the questions that my brain's going to bring up. However, I do remember once that I had some favourite pyjamas. I must have had them since I was maybe 4 or 5, and I remember them probably going when I was 8 or 9, and they definitely didn't fit me anymore. I know that I couldn't wear the bottoms to the PJs anymore because they were too short. They were shorts probably rather than trousers, and it was like a top that probably didn't fit me anymore. So I remember it because it was brushed cotton with little purple flowers on it. And I can still remember that now. And I'm 47? So a long time has passed and I still remember my favourite pyjamas. And I also remember that my mum probably thought she was doing me a favour and what she was doing for the best, because she got rid of things. And she got rid of these pyjamas because they didn't fit me anymore. And I was devastated. Now looking back, I know why I loved them. I loved them because they were really nice soft fabric, and I'm wearing a really soft jumper today because I was an undiagnosed autistic. In our family there's definitely autistic traits and also hoarding disorder as well running throughout our family, and I think my mum was just trying to streamline my things to what was appropriate, and from her point of view those pyjamas weren't appropriate anymore. They didn't fit me. But for me, it was devastating. Now, I'm not saying that that one thing impacted the rest of my life, because it absolutely did not. That's just one thing that I can remember of. My mum must have got rid of them because she thought she was doing the right thing. So I now, looking back, remember I never got rid of anything willingly. Ever. If it was broken, I'd cry and keep the bits. If it was something that didn't fit me anymore, I'd want to keep it. I don't remember getting rid of anything. And that pretty much carried on all the way through my childhood, all the way through into adulthood, I didn't get rid of anything. Everything was sentimental, everything had a memory or a feeling attached to it, and I wasn't the one that got rid of things. Obviously, I was undiagnosed autistic and ADHD, but I also have some health issues too. So I was hypermobile. I've got now back and neck issues, but I also have something called POTS, which means when I stand up, I can go faint. And the thing is, when you're growing up, you don't know what normal is. So I never realised it wasn't normal to go black and like faint when standing up when you've been sitting down in assembly all morning. The same as I didn't realise other kids wouldn't practice saying their name in their head in different ways, as they dreadedly counted down the names until being called on the class register every morning. So I was very much on the outside looking in all the way through school. I was always bullied. My school days were horrendous, and that led to what I'd always had emetophobia, so fear of vomit or vomiting. And I had really poor mental health from, I would say, the age of 12 all the way through into my late 30s and 40s. And I think being undiagnosed autistic throughout most of my life until everything suddenly became clear in my 30s and 40s. And I think that was really an important part of the decluttering process for me, although I didn't know it at the time. So going back to the beginning, my first house. My first house is still the house that I live in now. My first house that I bought, it was a repossession. So when it was bought, it was a bit of a fixer-upper. Well, massively a fixer-upper. And I split with my fiance not long after buying the house. So almost in negative equity, I had to beg the bank to let me keep it. And that meant that I had virtually nothing. I had no kitchen. So I lived for about 6 months, maybe a year, with just a tap on concrete floor, and that was my kitchen. Lived with a microwave, no cooker for a while. And the house itself was a wreck. I had a sofa bed for a sofa that would it was a hand me down from somewhere. Someone was probably going to put it in a tip, and I got it. And I would sit on this sofa and fall off it and end up on the floor every evening because the sofa didn't hold its shape. But I had nothing, but in other ways I had a lot of stuff as well. So I didn't have a kitchen. At some points I didn't have a TV, or I had a really old black and white one. But I did have all my stuff from growing up, which was either in boxes or it filled drawers. So although I didn't have a lot of storage because everything was full, the things that were important I didn't have anything of. So it's a bit of a weird contrast. So I had hidden clutter, but when someone would walk in, it'd look like I'd literally just moved in, even after 3 years. And then as time went on, I got a job. Things became a little bit easier. I was always in debt though. So I had a lot of stuff because I would buy things. So I had 2 wardrobes, 2 chests of drawers, and a big house. So it was just me and my daughter, but so much stuff. I mean, if you've got children, you'll know they grow out of things really quickly. You end up with a lot of tat, you end up with a lot of clothes, you end up with a lot of toys. Added into my lot of clothes, my lot of toys, an awful lot of stuff. I felt like I was drowning. I was always late, always. It was a known thing that I would always be late. My friends would tell me to come half an hour before they actually needed me to be there, hoping I would get there on time, but I wouldn't. I would be hours late. I once remember someone messaging me saying, for a date and saying, I think you've just walked past me. And I was just like, no, I haven't. I'm still in my dressing gown. I can't decide what to wear. And they were waiting for me. So I forgot stuff all the time. I could never find anything to wear. I had to rebuy things frequently and I could never find what I needed when I needed it. I would get doorbell panic. So if anybody tried to knock on the door, I would hide if anyone wanted to come in and pretend I wasn't in. And that honestly lived almost in a permanent level of fear of being found out. So throughout the jobs that I've had, whether it working in the libraries, so I love books, or whether it was selling naughty grown-up toys and underwear, which I did for 10 years, I was very professional to the outside world other than being late. And I think I showed that professionalism as being a perfectionist, very driven, very ambitious, very friendly to anybody, very non-judgmental. But also, I always felt like I was hiding who I really was and hiding like a dirty secret, which was my home. So I would never allow anybody to come into my home, not even like a meter reader. I would just pretend I wouldn't be in, wait for them to post the card through the door, and then I would obviously read the meter later and put it in the window for the next day. I did remember hosting one party, and it took weeks and weeks and an awful lot of stress to make the house acceptable. And that was for my closest friends. So that tells you how things were. So I was in a lot of debt. I was shopping as a hobby. As I learned that from my teenage years, I learned that you bought stuff to become acceptable to your peers, to try and blend in, to try and stop the bullies from bullying you. Didn't work, but shopping was a hobby. The first thing I did when my daughter was born was the first 2 days after being let out from hospital was we went to a local shopping centre because it was something to do. So I'd been kind of like brought up amongst a generation that would go into the city centre on a Saturday and window shop or buy things. That was what we did as a hobby. And I ended up, because of that, with 2 wardrobes full of stuff. Chest of drawers, boxes full, bags full, you name it, it was everywhere. And then when someone new moved into my home, I had to give one of my wardrobes up because they needed some space to put their stuff. So that meant when the new partner moved in, it meant there was also a second household full of stuff also then coming in. And I don't think either of us, if I'm totally honest, were very good at compromise. So we ended up with 2 of everything. Our stuff being saved in boxes in case it didn't work out. Obviously it didn't, but some of my stuff went into my outhouses. So kind of like external buildings at the back of your property, or in my loft. And my study which was once a study in an office, had become a junk room. It then got turned back into a bedroom. But that was just by moving stuff into other places. So it felt like the house was kind of bursting at the seams with my stuff, if I'm honest. My clothes were in the loft, under the bed, but they were mainly on the floor. Now, that's fine when you live by yourself. However, if you've been on my mailing list, you will know this story. But you will know that my partner at the time was really tidy, and I wasn't. And one night he went flying into my bedroom wall and wardrobe, giving himself concussion after tripping on my clothes. Like a rogue bra strap, I think, was the downfall. And that, for me was normal. Clothes living on the floor, clean clothes were living on the floor was normal. Now, I knew it wasn't good. I knew other people didn't live like that. I knew some people did and some people didn't. But I got absolutely no idea how to live any differently. So, and as things were like rocky with my partner at the time, I found the Marie Kondo book. It was one of those, like everything else that I'd bought in the last whatever months, I was reading something, went down the ADHD, rabbit hole, went through, from link to link to link, found the Marie Kondo book, bought it, Amazon, whatever, and thought, oh, it'll just stay by the side of my bed along with a million others, but I'll read it at some point and maybe do something about it. And what really surprised me was that I did read it, and that started my declutter journey. I wouldn't say that how I declutter now is wholly Marie Kondo, but it did introduce me to the using emotions and deciding what sparks joy. That was a real tangible thing, a real tool that I could use that I'd never had before. And that really helped. And then we split and he moved out. I realized that was the opportunity to change things and really declutter properly. It gave me something to do, if I'm honest, to keep my brain active at night after work, because let's face it, I don't do very well just relaxing. So decluttering started to become addictive for me. Like I could see progress, but it was such hard work. It was so many times where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's taking forever. I'm never going to get to the end of it. But it took me about a year of stopping and starting. I would do a big binge session of decluttering and then have to stop for a bit because I just got fed up of it and bored. And then I would have moments where I was just like, no, I just need to get it done, and I can't live like this anymore. And I remember doing paperwork on the floor in the living room. And at one point, I had 17 archive boxes of paperwork that I'd collected from all over the house to go through. And then I would get it into piles, and then the dogs would walk through the piles and mess it all up. And I felt like it was going to take forever. But if I'm honest, most categories did, because my house was full. I'd never thrown anything away in my entire life. Everything had been upended from someone moving in and moving out. And I'd got a lifetime of stuff and a lifetime of memories and very little tools to kind of combat it, to figure out what to do about it. However, I did have a goal, and I was skint. So as I started selling things, and I totted up the money, like a £5 here or there. And then when I sold some old jewellery, it paid for a trip with my mum. And I got some rings resized that I'd been given from my grandma. I realised things were changing. And that really did it for me. So before, I would have felt to keep the rings as they were, because that's had been given to me, they'd been gifted to me. So before she passed away, she did one of the best things anybody could possibly do. And that was, she asked us to choose some jewellery, and I chose a few rings. And it was so lovely to have them as a positive experience of her. And she was a really wonderful lady. And unfortunately, they were all too big for my fingers because I've got tiny fingers. But decluttering had made me realise that they shouldn't just be kept in boxes in a wardrobe somewhere, or in a cupboard somewhere. I really ought to wear them and enjoy them. And that connection to her was great. And it meant that I got them resized so I could wear them. Now, that showed me how much I'd changed, because I would have felt I would have had to keep them whole, to keep them as they were, to keep them in the pretty boxes that they came in, and, to keep them for best. And actually, I do wear them. I have jewellery that I wear and I love now. And that was a real nice thing to do. So I also massively, massively minimized my clothes. And I must have got rid of 80% of my clothes. But it was during this process I made the one mistake I always warn my clients about. And that's when you hear yourself saying the word should. So if you are in the UK, you will probably know, if you're anything like me, of a comedy program called Red Dwarf. Now, Red Dwarf was massive when I was at college, and I had a Red Dwarf t-shirt, which my mum absolutely detested because it was very rude and had a rude word on it. It also had a rude acronym on the back. I loved that t-shirt. I loved everything about the show, and I adored this t-shirt. Even better, the fact my mum didn't like it. So I wore this t-shirt a lot. However, when you suddenly get into your 30s, a t-shirt from your teenage years is that thing that you shouldn't have anymore. And I got no reason to wear it. Like, the TV show had ended. It wasn't cool anymore. I definitely wouldn't have worn it out because it was actually oversized when I was bought it when I was 16, 18. And I'd not really changed size that much. It was probably a man's size large. And bear in mind, I'm a UK size 8 women. So it was too big for me. So I got rid of it. The word should hit me. I should get rid of this. I will never wear it. I used logic, not emotion. When it went, I can't say I missed it straight away, because I was rediscovering the clothes that I'd forgotten about, my wardrobe, every single thing in there I absolutely adored. But as time went on, I really started to miss this t-shirt. And that is because I didn't use my emotion. I used logic. It didn't fit me. It wasn't the right size. It was old. It had faded a little bit. It wasn't in fashion anymore. I would never get the opportunity to wear it. And then what made it even worse was they rebooted Red Dwarf and put it back on TV. And I could have worn it when watching it on TV. And I got all into the characters all over again. I went down the autism, hyperfocus, nostalgia, loving it. And I didn't have the t-shirt anymore. So if there's one thing I would say to you, is always use your emotion rather than logic. And you will never regret any of the things that you let go of. I can remember some of the things I let go of, but I would say I got rid of 80% of my possessions. And I would say 80% of those, I couldn't even tell you what they were. 20% I could probably tell you some of the things, some of the clothes I could definitely tell you about, but I absolutely do not miss any of them at all. And I love my life now. So a year down the line, my house was decluttered. However, now it felt really impersonal. It felt really bare, almost like how it had been when I first moved into the house when I had nothing. So there were holes in the wall where the shelves had, my ex had put up and then they'd gone with him. And it felt like it had gone from overly cluttered to feeling really sparse and looking back to how it did when I first moved in and I had nothing. Even my friend said to me, I think you've taken this decluttering business too far. And actually I hadn't, but I didn't know how to put my personality back into my home because I was so scared of making it look cluttered again. So as time went on though, living like that made the house reappear to me. I started to realise how I wanted my home to look and all the things that I've been told about in my past. So you should never have anything white in your home because it gets mucky. All those things I've been taught growing up. So you don't have white in your home, you don't paint your skirting boards, all these things, the rules that I thought I had to adhere to. I realised I didn't. I could do what I actually wanted to do. It was my house that I'd fought to keep hold of. And actually, I could do it. So I started to decorate, including a very bad experience painting my hallway a really dark grey. I picked totally the wrong colour and it made it look like a prison. So pretty much the same day, I quickly found a lighter grey to make it look a little bit like Prisoner Cell Block H. I got a log burner installed. I put pictures up on the walls without worrying whether or not they were in the right place or not, as it could always be changed later. I treated myself to a brand new wardrobe. So in the past, I'd always got furniture as hand-me-downs or had it a certain way, or it had been furniture that would been with me for a long, long time. So I totally got rid of all the other furniture. I was able to work out exactly how many drawers and how much hanging spaces I need because I'd got that figured out. I'd got the clothes that I needed, and I knew that I got the 75% full and how much space I could then buy. So I look at my home now still as a work in progress because that's, if I'm honest, is down to money and nothing else. But it no longer embarrasses me. It's still a reflection of me. So in my study, I have got, artwork from around Sheffield. I've got a full Monty in the background. I've got, a rabbit with angel wings, which represents me, me. I've got some artwork that I've bought as I've been around and about. And it is my personality, it is my things. And I don't care if other people don't like it. I don't care. It's mine and it's me. And it looks okay because there isn't clutter getting in the way of it. Yes, it sometimes gets messy. Like if I've had 6 clients in a week and I end up with all the discards in my dining room temporarily, but it's temporary clutter and it feels very different now. I no longer have to open a door and say, excuse the mess. I can go, oh, this is what I do for a living. That's what all that stuff is. Or I can put it in a certain place and I don't have to hide things from anyone anymore. I don't have to worry about them going into certain rooms. I don't have to worry about opening the door, which is so different. I can say yes to whatever my daughter, wants to do. If she wants to build a den, she can build a den. She was never able to do that as a kid because I couldn't cope with the mess. If she wants to have friends round, I can say yes. If you want a sleepover, yes, because I know where the extra duvets are and the clean bedding. It's all there for us. I've also leaned into my neurodivergence. So I buy things because I love them, regardless of if they feel childish. So I've got lots of pretty lights and a rainbow maker because it makes me happy. I don't have that feeling inside me anymore to buy things for the sake of buying, and I don't use the shops as a hobby anymore. It's so very freeing that you can't begin to imagine how it feels until you start to declutter. One of the biggest things that people say when I leave from their first or second declutter with me is, I feel so much lighter now. And that lightness stays with you. It really does. Now, you can be yourself once you've decluttered, and you can live in a home that truly reflects you. It is a hard process and it takes a lot of time, but it can be so much quicker if you do it the right way. And that's what I want to help you achieve. So I hope that's given you some things to think about. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Remember, you're not alone, and keep untangling, because if I did it, you can too. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Decluttering Untangled. If you found anything that I've said today helpful, please do me a favour hit that subscribe button or leave me a review. It's like receiving a virtual high five that keeps me going and lets me know that I'm helping real people out there and I'm making a difference. Please remember, you're not alone in this. I'm building a community of fellow untanglers over on Facebook. Just visit the show notes for the link to my free decluttering community. So until next time, remember, you're not alone, you're not lazy, you can untangle your life.